Last week we filed a lawsuit on behalf of employees regarding whether or not the employer was paying proper overtime. Most employees in California are entitled to overtime. A lot of employees are entitled to overtime over 8 hours in a day. Now there's exceptions to the overtime rules, and those exceptions will apply to a lot of employees. As to whether or not your employer is required to pay overtime in California, it's a pretty fact-intensive question. There are exceptions under the law, but just because an employer is telling you that they don't pay overtime, that's not an exception. It's important for you to understand that if you work for a private company, like most people do, you are going to be entitled to overtime. I don't really want to get into the exceptions too much as to whether or not you're entitled to overtime, because I do still think that even within the exceptions, the employer has to jump through some hoops or have to show that you truly fall within the exception. If you have an employer that's refusing to pay you overtime, and whether or not you have questions as to whether or not you're properly classified in a manner as to whether or not you should be entitled to overtime, I encourage you to talk to a law firm. If that's this firm, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Always feel free to reach out to us regarding any overtime questions that you may have. Honestly, any wage and hour questions, meal, rest breaks, bonuses, any questions that you have regarding wage and hour issues here in California, give us a call. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Thanks.